Greetings and welcome to the Dallas Area Opinion Podcast, the most sporadic podcast out there, speaking into the largest empty echo chamber there is. We are talking about independence. You never hear an echo chamber for independence. We've got them for Republicans, MAGA, liberals, all sorts of people, sports. But independence, probably the largest individual group in the country politically, more independents than Democrats, more independents than Republicans. I don't know, combined Democrats and Republicans may total more than independents, but you got to wonder, why isn't more people creating an independent voice? Occasionally you see some on social media trying their best, much more than me, to create something. It just doesn't take. The Democrats and Republicans and their respected media groups stick with them. We don't get something that says, what's for us? What are you doing for us? But anyway, that isn't what this podcast is about. It is about tariffs, reciprocal tariffs. Now, 4 p.m. Eastern time today, Donald Trump's going to announce his tariffs for the world and what he expects people to do. He, in one article I saw, is calling them reciprocal tariffs. I don't think he understands what reciprocal is. Maybe because there's been enough back and forth, he thinks they're reciprocal. But he's going to announce his tariffs to the world. And then what I'm concerned is, what are the world's reciprocal tariffs going to be like? But we're going to try to start off on the high road, that wonderful road. You look up, there's this big, long, beautiful line of hills. Maybe it's all one hill. You can see it, sunshine. You can see the sunshine up there. You come back, look at the little path in front of you that leads up to the first part of the hill or one part of the hill that you can get on. Problem is, not too many people walk the high road. So the path to get up there, it's overgrown. When it rains, the path gets washed away a little bit. So there's gullies, you can sprain your ankle. Rocks have rolled down, you can trip over. But you strain and walk and climb and tiptoe around obstructions and cut through the brush, and you eventually get to the high road. And then you look down that long path, and it's just swaths of lavender, nice smell. The breeze gently moves the plants back and forth. And you look down and it's just sunshiny, and way off in the distance you might see some other flowers, other types of flowers, but it's all beautiful. The path itself is still a little overgrown. People haven't walked down this path much lately, so it is starting to get overgrown with some grass. No weeds, because this is the high road. It's just a little bit of grass, a little bit of soft dirt, because people don't walk on it, so it's not padded down with people trampling all over it. Not like the path back down from the high road or the muck down below. Tumble down the high road into the low road, and it's pretty hard packed ground because people just keep tumbling down. Even the few people who get up here, many people don't even get all the way up. They start tumbling down. That's where most of it falls apart. But today we're going to try our best to stay on the high road a little bit. Talk about what Donald Trump wants to do with these tariffs. Now, there are some people in right-wing echo chambers, conservative media, whatever you want to call it, that are espousing that this is good for America. That he is just trying to create a level playing field with these tariffs. He's trying to bring back, not only American jobs, but American prosperity, and that these tariffs are going to make countries fall in line with treating America with better respect. That we're also not going to be America's policemen anymore. We're not going to be in all these foreign wars, and these tariffs are a reflection of bringing back America, bringing back production to America, cutting our military, that we don't have to do everything, that we're not protecting everybody, that things, we're spending our own capital and not getting anything back from it. Tariffs are just one step in bringing all this back. And there are people who, make somewhat of an argument that if you have tariffs, that the trade, how we deal the trade with countries will tilt back in our favor for local production. And on the surface, you can kind of see that. On the surface, you can see Trump forcing the issue with people having to pay for their own military a little bit more. That helps us. We can spend less tax dollars on our own military. Not quite sure. I'll get to that later about what is that all about, because Trump's administration doesn't seem to be too concerned about national security, but that's a different story. But we've got all these different things that we do. We are a large market, and if we can bring some of our own production back and buy some of our own goods, it's going to benefit America. And these tariffs are supposed to let people know, invest in America, or Americans won't buy your product because we're going to make them more expensive here. Two things. One, not everybody thinks that what you think is great because they have their own self-interests involved. And the way Trump's going about it, how he's approaching this. I mean, there's something called diplomacy. You know, he takes credit for Europeans spending more of their own money on defense. Maybe Putin attacking Ukraine had more to do with that. Not quite sure if people are responding to Trump or to Putin or both. But yeah, some European countries are spending a little bit more on their own national defense. Again, I think it's more Putin because he's there on their doorstep. But, you know, Trump seems to think that if he gets boisterous and blusterous, that people are going to pay attention to him and do what he wants. But the path, and this is the high road, I'm staying on the high road, but the path he's taken is like taking a brick and smashing the window of the world, and all those pieces go blowing up everywhere, and he's going to sit back and let everybody pick up the mess he's made. And they're going to put it back together the way he wants it. I don't think he realizes that the world doesn't work that way. You can throw the brick through the glass, but when people start putting it back together, they may not put it back together the way you want it to. People look through that window differently. Just quite frankly, differently. China, we worry about Russia and Europe. We got to worry about China and the rest of the world. But there's also something called BRICS. It's an acronym of certain countries. Brazil, Russia, India, China, some more that are joining together to create their own kind of, it's a trade alliance or an economic alliance to weaken the American dollar. The American dollar has been pretty much the currency for the world for quite a few decades now. And other countries don't like that. They want to have that much influence. And BRICS is a group trying to rebuild or build an influence to take away the might of the American dollar. We have to be concerned about that. We don't need to be everything to everybody, but we have quite a few relationships that you can't throw a brick through and expect those people to be happy about it. Got to look at the world through, not through rose-colored glasses, but through realistic glasses. We can't expect everybody to do what Donald Trump wants. He gets away with it for a while, but over time, things can change. And that's my concern here, is he's going to announce his tariffs today at 4 p.m. Eastern. We don't know what they are right now, so you have to be careful about making bombastic statements about what's going to happen. Is he going to ramp up the whole world? We don't know. We'll wait and see. But the concern is if people look at that and go, I don't like that. That doesn't benefit me. What am I going to do? They may place their own tariffs on American goods and start trading with other people. All our alliances, all our trading partners begin to weaken because of these tariffs. People will do what's in their best self-interest. And that's what I fear may happen. Other markets develop, BRICS become stronger. Other people that we have reliance on rely on people like China. It wouldn't be bad if they relied on India. India's kind of been, I mean, you hear a few things now and then, but India is the largest market in the world by number of people. We're probably the largest market in the world by what we consume per person. So there's markets out there. Europe, China, India, Africa, South America, you name it. People may look elsewhere for trade if they think trading with the United States will not be beneficial to them. They can slap reciprocal tariffs on us and on top of the tariffs we send to people, but Canada may not slap tariffs on European goods, and Europeans may not slap tariffs on Canadian goods. So they'll find each other. South America, they're developing, some aspects of them are developing third world countries. Africa, developing third world countries. China's trying to go in there and develop those countries because, A, they want those markets. They know there's a bunch of people that can buy quite a bit of product. They can get those markets up to speed, up to, where they can afford to buy things. It benefits China to do what they do. Doesn't benefit us to let China get away with it, to start becoming the major trading partner in the world. We may slap tariffs on China, but China will turn around and find other markets. They've been trying to build this Silk Road endeavor to create those markets, to expand their markets. We just chopped our little finger off. We need to do more than we do, but Musk just chopped up USAID, the little finger that we have in helping develop third world countries. We should always have been doing more. But what little we've been doing just got thrown in the heap of Dodge, trash heap of Doge, doggy, and this is going to hurt us. It's going to come back to bite us much larger than losing the finger of USAID. These tariffs sound good to certain people. Is it going to replace the income tax? No. Or well, it may. It's just going to cause even bigger problems. We need to look at markets holistically, and we need to realize trade is good. People, corporations, entities make money from trade. And it's okay to make money, but that's their job to make money. Managing all that is the government's job. We need government and markets to work together well. Markets can't run the government, and government can't run the markets. But we need both of them to do what they are supposed to do. Now that may mean that some billionaires make a little less because they may have to pay a little bit more in taxes, and they may have to be, it's important to make sure that people's health is taken care of, which means you don't pollute the environment, because that's where cancer comes from and all these horrible diseases that we've created for ourselves. Our bodies are being eaten up by poisons. So we need a government, specifically the EPA, to kind of make sure businesses play in the sandbox well. Keep the sandbox clean. But they shouldn't be telling markets what to do. But tariffs kind of move markets in a direction that we may or may not want. We have to think about going forward. Let's look at it back on the high road. We're going to do these tariffs. Things work. But for who? American businesses will find markets. Even the billionaires in this country will find markets. If our country goes down economically, they'll lose a market. But just like those other countries looking for trading partners, multinational corporations will find a way, because that's their job, is to make money. And they'll go where the money is. And if it's no longer in the United States of America, they'll go. We cannot export anymore. If we get reciprocal tariffs and people in Europe, Canada, Mexico, Japan, other places aren't buying our products anymore because they are more expensive in their countries, what we export diminishes. People will lose their job. What happens when people loses their job? They can't buy, they can't consume anymore. They can't be part of the market, or little part of the market. And if that happens to more and more people in this country, our consumption, our market dwindles, diminishes, people are not going to invest here. It already takes quite a bit of money to invest in new plants, whether it be an auto plant, a chip plant. I mean, we're not bringing textile back here. No one's going to work for the wages that would be needed for textile to come back here, but I think Trump thinks textile will come back here. There are people being screwed around this planet, making nothing, making clothes. I don't think paying Americans, even American minimum wage, is going to bring textile manufacturing and clothing manufacturing back here. Who knows? We may have to. We may have to make our own clothes. Sewing machines are expensive too, so that makes that even more fun. Do we build sewing machine plants in this country so we can make our own clothes? Who knows? That's what I think Trump wants, is for Singer to be an American company and Americans make their own clothes so we don't have to rely on foreign goods. Comes first. May work that way, but I think that we're too much of a consumer society to start being that self-reliant. And in the years it would take to get there, we may never get there. Like I said, billionaires and large corporations, if there's no market, they are not going to invest in it. They're not going to build the plants here. Because if we can't consume it and other countries are putting tariffs on our goods because we put tariffs on their goods, we're not going to export. It's not a pretty picture. It really isn't. We're not going to get what Trump thinks we're going to get out of this. Again, throwing the brick through the window, the world's window. People don't see the same view through that window that we do. And we can't expect them to. We just can't. They are more concerned about their self-interest than ours. It's just human nature. It's just nation nature. This is important to think about. We don't talk about the long-term effects of these tariffs. I know some do, And like I said, there's some in the right-wing echo chamber, conservative. I don't call it conservative anymore, even though I do slip and say it. I don't know what conservative is anymore. There's some young people out there who are calling themselves conservative, and I'm not talking about the MAGA echo chamber. I'm talking about some of these people who are buying into what Trump's saying about these tariffs. They've got a more optimistic viewpoint that these things are going to help us. That they believe that countries are going to respond. Truthfully, they may. We may all be wrong. Many of us who are opposed to these tariffs. You just can't see it though. I mean, it takes time to invest. To recreate industries, rebuild industries, takes money and time. And if we lose our market, if we start diminishing economically, people may not want to invest the money and the time into this. So long before a new plant can be built, there have been some companies that have said they're going to invest. Trump's got them in the headlines saying that they're going to invest billions of dollars here. There's a few. But companies have been investing in America for a long time. I mean, there are Japanese car makers building cars in the United States of America. They've built plants here. They'll continue to do that as long as we're a dynamic market, as long as we're a dynamic economy. They don't need tariffs to be sticked, the carrot and the stick aspect of life. They don't need that. They probably want more carrots. Now, one of the most infamous carrots is giving people tax breaks. We probably need to find new carrots because we got to get some people to pay some taxes we can bring some of this debt down. And, I'm all for cutting government expenses. I've written about it, talked about it, but there are better ways to do it than just taking a chainsaw and wiping out government agencies you don't like, or in this case, maybe even investigating him or other billionaires. Don't be confused. They're just getting rid of what's in their way or what doesn't benefit them. Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, that doesn't benefit billionaires, so they don't care about it. Cuts there do not mean squat to them. So you have to kind of put things in perspective when you look at this, when you look at what they're doing. Inspector generals, they don't want that because that means people are going to be held accountable. Something goes wrong, there's a person that takes care of that, looks into that, fixes it, or works to get that fixed. They don't want that. They act like they're cutting expenses. They're not. They're cutting what's in their way. Just blatant cutting what's in their way. It's like security. Trump says we need Greenland for security. We don't need Greenland for security. We have NATO. Greenland via Denmark is part of NATO. We need to bolster and make NATO better. Part of that is getting them to spend more of their budget on defense. Trump, if they're doing it because of Trump, well then, more power to everybody. But I don't think so. I think Putin had more of an effect at invading Ukraine than Trump did, or Biden. But we don't need to take over Greenland. Why do these people think we need to take over Greenland? Nothing to do with national security. Well, to a degree it is, because what the billionaires want is all the raw materials Greenland is sitting on. Greenland is just a big chunk of ice and raw materials. And there are people who want to get their hands on that for their benefit. They want to exploit that. No. Again, we need governments, we need markets, but we need everybody to stay in their lanes. And it's not going to do the world good for billionaires to exploit it. Now, if people develop it, and there are jobs created in Greenland, and Greenland exports those minerals, and it benefits the world, both, even the billionaires, but also in more products for people to build and consume, well, that's a good thing. But the United States taking over Greenland so we have it to exploit it, while we've tariffed everybody and everybody's tariffed us, and we can't build anything because we're not exporting anything, doesn't do us any good. Self-defeating. But these are the things we need to look at. Tariffs are just potentially going to destroy alliances we've built up for decades. What Trump's doing by throwing this brick through the window of the world is not going to have a new window built the way he wants it. It's going to change things, maybe even drastically. And that drastic change is not going to be good for us. Again, BRICS, Russia, China, they want us to fail. They are cheering this on because Russia for its own European goals, conquering Europe, and China for conquering the world economically. Tariffs help China more than they help us because China can go in and create new trading partners. And they can spend less on the military because, yes, they do want Taiwan, but even Trump realizes China plays the long game. The weaker we get, the easier that's going to become. So they're not in a hurry. They become stronger economically through their Silk Road endeavors, even though that hasn't been as successful as they want it to be. But people start looking elsewhere for trading partners besides the United States. China's going to be knocking at their door. It's inevitable because that's what they want. They are really looking at the long game and they want to take over from us, take over what we did, create the largest trading alliances around the world to bolster and strengthen them, and they will use it to benefit China. But they're not going to go around tariffing people to do it. They're going to be looking, expanding. Their little fingers are going to be clawing into everything around the world. Like I said, we cut off ours in USAID. The little bit we did to help develop third world countries and make us look good, they're going to be doing the same thing but at a much larger scale because they see the benefit. I mean, they did. Silk Road was, they saw the benefit of getting in there. They're not doing a good job with it, but if they start doing a better job, not good for us. And believe me, their manipulations will spit and falter, and some people won't go for it. But the more and more we shoot ourselves in the foot, the more and more we put tariffs on other countries' goods and they can't export to us, they'll be looking for a market because I know this is hard for Trump to understand. Other countries want their people to do well too. He doesn't seem to understand that it's not a one-way street at all. It's a multi-lane highway with cars coming and going in all sorts of directions. There's clover leaves, east, west, north, south, and service roads and spin-offs and spurs going everywhere on this planet. And it doesn't always go down the United States way. We've done well. We've really been very fortunate, very blessed in building up the relations we've built up over the last 70 years. We have spent a lot of money on the military, maybe too much. Would be nice to cut that back a little bit, but an honest cut back. There's probably waste. There's waste in every government agency. That's inevitable because they're not built to be efficient. If we were really to go after reducing our debt and deficit a little bit, there is some waste. What Musk is doing is not looking for waste. It's looking to get rid of everything I can get rid of so I can get my tax breaks. And all the billionaires behind him and Donald Trump and Project 2025 and all that ilk, they are looking for ways to benefit themselves. Not you, not America, themselves. Again, when governments and markets do what they're supposed to do, things are great. Stay in their lanes. But government needs to be protecting the people. It's kind of one of the main points of government is protecting its people. Most time, historically, it's been for defense purposes because kings would attack kings. Countries would attack the countries. But there's also something that we started learning after World War II, that we need to start thinking about the people as a whole. Now, we haven't done the greatest job, but taking care of people's health, important. Taking care of the environment, it's important. These things need to be done. Don't cut there. You find the waste, the real waste, but it's only going to be a real tiny percentage of each agency. But you work at it a little bit, make each agency a little bit more efficient, let them stick to their goals, maybe cut back on certain things that are frivolous. I mean, Dodge has headlined some frivolous stuff. Let's be honest. Some of that stuff is kind of frivolous. But it is so minute compared to what we really need to cut. Yet he's cutting swaths of everything, just taking away people, it's just inevitable there's going to be disaster to that. You just can't take a chainsaw to something and then not expect the tree to fall on top of the roof. It's going to fall on the roof if you keep cutting. And then it's going to crash through the house and people are going to be hurt. And that's kind of what's happening with our illustrious Doggy morass that's going on. But that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about these tariffs. I'm not looking forward to what's going to happen. The reciprocal tariffs, again, don't know. He may come out with this beautiful tariff plan that works. Not optimistic. Because people, other countries, the leaders of other countries, the Italian prime minister was in the news the other day or today or yesterday saying, we still need to work with the Americans. We do good trade with the United States. She's talking about both Italy and Europe. So we want to keep that up. But there's no guarantee that their attitude's going to stay. Because again, if companies in Europe can't export to the United States because we stop buying their products because of the tariffs, they will find new partners. It is inevitable. These billionaires, whether they be American billionaires, European billionaires, Chinese billionaires, Japanese billionaires, Russian billionaires, they want to make that money. They want to make that money. They will find new trading partners. And just because it's been us, history is not kind to people who don't pay attention. History has shown, that you're in trouble if you don't pay attention to the rest of the world. And Trump is not paying attention to the rest of the world. He is short-sighted. He acted the other day, said something, I forget what it was, but he was talking about, China. He figured out that, or somebody told him that China thinks long-term, and he was saying something they were going to do was long-term thinking. No. Can't throw a brick through a window, expect other people to clean it up and call that long-term thinking. People rebuild it the way they see it. We've had some great alliances, both military, diplomatically, economically. You can't expect these people to do what you want. They do. They've been allied with us in all these areas because it has benefited them. Once that stops, they'll look elsewhere. So, reciprocal tariffs, that's what he's calling, what he's going to announce today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Maybe not. Maybe not. But we'll see. I would love to see things change. Like to see a little bit better. Our trade alliances built a little bit more equivalently. But that won't happen if we start throwing bricks through windows. Diplomacy, carrots, relying on those trading partners and working with them to change what does need to be changed. Like, again, Europe spending a little bit more on its own defense. That's a good thing. Helps us to cut back our military a little bit. That would be a good thing. There's some not even waste, fraud, or abuse, just some practical reduction of expenses. That's a good thing. Just not seeing this current administration doing that. But we hope that you are not affected by what happens in a negative way. Again, this is the most sporadic podcast out there, talking into an echo chamber that should be very large, but sometimes I think my voice is just bouncing off the canyon walls. Very large. We're talking about the Grand Canyon. We'll go into Trump's hyperbole type speak. It's the Grand Canyon, biggest canyon out there, and independents should be filling it up. More of us than Democrats or Republicans. Yet we don't seem to realize that and to be more forceful with getting better public policy from our government leaders. We definitely need it. We need better health care, better education, lower taxes for the working and middle class. We need our corporations to think about us. They would do the right thing. We wouldn't need the EPA, but they're not going to. They're self-centered. It's okay. Markets are going to do markets things. That's okay. As long as the markets realize they can't rule the roost in protecting the people, because they're not going to protect the people. That's what our government's for. Governments do those kind of things. They need to pay their fair share of taxes to help pay for that. The better they behave, then the less taxes they would have to pay. It works. It's a dynamic two-way street, as I mentioned. Again, it's around the world and even in this country. There are highways going every direction, spurs going to this highway, service roads. People get off and fix things. But until more people realize that, we're going to struggle a little bit. So, hope you have a good day. We'll see what happens at 4 p.m. Eastern Time today, making sure you know, in case you listen to this in advance, when Trump's going to come out. And yes, the echo chambers of the right and the left will have their opinion, and they'll tell you what's wrong with it or what's great about it. But in the long run, both of them aren't thinking about you. Whether you're independent, Democrat, or Republican, your echo chamber is not thinking about you in the Democrat and Republican world, or the right wing and the left wing world. They're thinking about themselves too. That's why we don't get better public policy, why we don't get better demands on our government. And that's why the billionaires are writing the rules in our government right now. We need to be a little bit louder, a little bit more vocal, get the numbers out there, and tell both these political parties they're failing us, and do something a little bit better for this country. But right now, we got to worry about President Trump and his tariffs and what the rest of the world does, because if they quit buying American goods, because we're not buying their goods, sooner or later, it could be pretty bad for this country. We're not just talking about recession. We're talking about long-term diminished power. Long-term. China's thinking the long-term game. There's Chinese wine. They're sitting at home drinking it, watching this happen. Yeah, they may get into the tit for tat for tariffs with us, but they are already looking left, right, up, down, and everywhere else, telling people they are not going to get into a tariff war with other trading partners. Benefits them. If we can't export, we stop building stuff, we stop losing jobs, we stop consuming, we start losing jobs, we start losing more jobs. Not pretty. The sooner we get out there and tell people this doesn't work for me, the sooner we can get things changed that does work for us. Anyway, have a great day. Somehow, after that depressing morass, you take care, and we'll talk to you later.